What's up, guys? I'm BTC. The PTR just got updated. Lucio and Ana got some buffs, but some other characters got some massive nerfs. There is a ton of hero balance changes that we gotta get to, but first, there's something else that I have to show you. You go to the hero gallery, and right here it says what's new. You click that, and it will show you all of the new items that have been added to the game. So anytime there's a new event, you can just come to this tab, and you'll get to see all of the skins, the emotes, the sprays, voice lines, everything that's been added. You don't have to try and hunt it down anymore and figure out, did I miss something for this guy, or did I get all the stuff for this one and this one? It's all gonna be right here. Finally, they added this. This is awesome. I'm super glad that this got added. Alright, let's get to the hero balance changes. Alright, let's move on to the hero balance changes because there is a ton of stuff. The first thing is a general change to a bunch of the different ultimates. Channeled and Transformation ultimates now restore ammunition after completion for some heroes. And those affected are going to be Junkrat, Pharah, Roadhog, Zenyatta, Genji, and Winston. And this basically just removes that extra kind of cooldown period after the ultimate. So rather than having to wait a couple seconds to reload, that character can simply just go right back into the fight. First up is Ana. Her ultimate nano boost now also instantly heals the target for 300 health. And in addition to the patch notes, Blizzard also gave us quite a bit of commentary on some of these changes. So for Ana, they said that Ana has a very strong and unique toolbox with the potential to dish out more healing than any other hero in the game. That said, she has a couple disadvantages that can be difficult to overcome, such as the potential to miss your targets, not having any mobility options, and having a more difficult time keeping herself healed up. Her ultimate can be very powerful, but often feels like it can be difficult to use effectively unless it's used in combination with other allied ultimates, such as Genji's Dragon Blade. This new change allows Ana to use her ultimate as a clutch save on a dying teammate, or even use it in combination with her Bionade for a huge instant heal on even the biggest of tank health pools. So this is a pretty nice little buff for Ana. It's going to make it so that you can keep one of your teammates pretty much alive through a very large amount of damage. If they're getting attacked, not only do they get the big 300 instant heal, but they also get that 50 damage resistance on top of that. The problem is, this resolves absolutely nothing for Ana. This is nice, don't get me wrong, it's cool, but it's not going to fix any of the problems that she has right now. I really don't understand why they chose to give her this buff. It doesn't resolve any of the problems that she currently has, and it doesn't make her any more of a useful or viable pick. Moving on to Brigitte, Shield Bash was nerfed yet again. Cooldown was increased from 6 to 7 seconds, and they said Shield Bash is Brigitte's strongest ability, and its short cooldown makes it very difficult to play around. We'd like to keep her Shield Bash and subsequent melee combos powerful and effective, while just allowing a little more counterplay against it. We talked about possibly reducing her defense somewhere, such as reducing her barrier health. However, her tank hybrid nature is a core part of her kit, and we want to make sure she maintains that feeling of being a difficult target to take down. Overall, Brigitte's win rate is still the highest of any support, despite dishing out the lowest amount of raw healing per second. This speaks volumes to how powerful her kit can be outside of her direct healing numbers. The reason why her win rate is high is because people refuse to pick counters to the character. I see this time and time again, even in the high Master and GM games. People will consistently play characters like Tracer and Genji against a Brigitte. And I have this, it's kind of the square peg round hole mentality. The idea that they just keep using the same thing over and over, trying to get that square peg to go through the round hole, and then they get frustrated when it doesn't work. I'll see the Tracer just get taken out, and then they complain about the Brigitte. Rather than complaining, you should be switching to something that isn't being hard countered. It would be like a Winston player complaining that there's a Reaper on the enemy team. Yes, the Reaper is there. Why? Because he's strong against what you're using. So the solution is to pick something that will then in turn counter that character. There are quite a few characters that will counter Brigitte. Just pick one and go with it. The other problem is that players are constantly out of position and way too close to an enemy Brigitte. So rather than changing that behavior, rather than being in the spot you're supposed to be, they simply complain that she can hit them and she can stun them. She wouldn't be stunning you if you weren't in the wrong spot. I've talked about this in the past. They could bump up the shield bash cooldown all the way to 10 or 12 seconds, and it's still not going to really change the dynamic of the character. The way that she interacts with Tracer, Genji, Reinhardt, and other tank characters is not going to change. Blizzard needs to stop trying to accommodate the square peg, round hole gameplay. Next up is Doomfist. He got a couple of nice little quality of life buffs versus Symmetra specifically. So the Rocket Punch will no longer impact the Symmetra teleporter, and it will also destroy the sentry turrets without stopping his movement. Before, with Symmetra, you could just plop down the teleporters and the sentry turrets between you and Doomfist, and he just couldn't Rocket Punch you. Like, he would try, and all the stuff on the ground would just stop him. But now all of that is changed. He just goes right through it as if it's not even there. Hanzo's getting another nerf. His lunge cooldown increased from 4 to 5 seconds, and developer comments say that his lunge ability allows him to be very evasive. The increased cooldown should make him slightly easier to catch. So this was the big change for Hanzo. They gave him the extra mobility he needed in order to evade some of the stuff that was trying to come after him. The problem was, it was just a little too good, and he was able to evade a lot more stuff than he wasn't. This should change that at least a little bit. Next up is Moira. They gave her a tiny buff to her potential healing output. Her passive energy regeneration rate increased from 2 per second to 2.4 per second. And they said that Moira is a strong hero that doesn't need a lot of changes. The resource change her is mostly to help her out of situations where you're just not able to get close enough to the enemy to drain them for resources. Now if your team is sparring with the enemy team at super long range, you have a bit more resources to work with to keep your team topped off. I mean, this is nice. This is a nice little buff. It's not really going to have much of an impact. I think mostly it's going to be useful for the lower end Moira players who probably have problems with resource management. Next is Lucio, and if there was a winner of the PTR patch, it was definitely him. He got some massive buffs. The crossfade aura radius increased from 10 to 12 meters, and the sound barrier temporary shields granted increased from 500 to 750. So they said Lucio's crossfade aura can be an invaluable addition for any team, but it can sometimes be difficult to keep your home team boosted. We're increasing the radius of Lucio's crossfade aura to allow more flexibility in how he moves while still maintaining his powerful support songs to help out his team. His ultimate is also being increased to help counter large spikes of damage. For example, Junkrat's ultimate can deal a maximum of 600 damage, which Sound Barrier can now potentially negate completely. It is worth noting that even though the initial shield he provides is larger, it still takes the same amount of time to destroy itself. Couple of things. First, the crossfade change is absolutely massive. It's an extra 2 meters to the radius, so in all directions. This significantly increases the area that he can buff now. And then for the sound barrier, this is also pretty substantial. Now, if you're wondering if this change is going to protect your team from the Grav Dragon combo, the answer is no. You're still going to get completely obliterated. But what this does is it allows your team to basically throw caution to the wind. Your team can get buffed with an absolutely incredible amount of extra health, and then you can just be completely reckless for the next 3 or 4 seconds. Your team can just go all in and dive the enemy team, or just, you know, try to push through that choke point, whatever it happens to be, and you're really going to have almost no fear of having your team get taken out. Like, for that amount of time, you are basically going to be safe, unless the enemy team uses some really powerful ultimates in order to counter it. So I think the sound barrier has even more offensive potential than it ever had before, and the defensive potential is definitely still there, but I think the offensive is where it's going to be pushed. Next is Mercy, and this is an unbelievably big nerf. Her healing beam was reduced from 60 healing per second to 50 healing per second. And Blizzard says Mercy is intended to be able to consistently pump out more healing than any other hero over the course of a match. While this is currently true, the difference in healing is so significant that it makes it very difficult for other healers to compete with her for a spot on the team. Reducing her healing output will close this gap a little, but she will still maintain her status as a go-to pick for raw healing power. We'll keep an eye on her and make sure she's still a strong pick. Mercy does have very high consistent healing, but she doesn't have the highest healing. Ana and Moira can put out way more healing than Mercy can. The problem is that Ana and Moira both have some limitations that Mercy simply doesn't. Like, Mercy never needs to reload, she never needs to recharge her energy resource or anything like that. It's just constantly there. So they're nerfing this, and this is an absolutely massive change to the character. I don't think you guys might realize how big that extra 10 healing per second is going to be. Mercy is still definitely going to be used, but this does significantly weaken the character. Also, I want to point out that certain other heroes like Winston, who do 60 damage per second, can now actually out-damage Mercy's healing. Because before, what would happen is, if a character was being healed by Mercy, then Winston could do 0 damage to them. He would do 60 per second, Mercy would heal for 60 per second, and they would just counteract. But now, characters like Winston can actually deal damage to heroes that are being healed by Mercy. Next is a nerf for Widowmaker. Grappling hook cooldown increased from 8 seconds to 10 seconds. This is almost identical to the change that they made for Hanzo. Basically, the characters have too much mobility right now, and they're able to escape the enemies that are trying to go after them a little too often. So it's still going to be there, they're just going to have a little bit harder of a time dealing with it. Next up is Zarya. She actually got a pretty nice buff, but also got a nerf at the same time. So the buff is the energy drain reduced from 2 per second to 1.6 per second, and then the nerf was for her ultimate, the Graviton Surge radius reduced from 8 to 6 meters. And the dev comments say that with the reduced energy drain rate, Zarya should be at a higher energy on average, resulting in more overall damage and quicker ultimate charge times. We've also decreased the wide area of the Graviton Surge, so players are more able to aid allies without being pulled in as well. So I think that this is, one, going to help her build her ultimate more quickly, which is kind of funny because it's going to make the whole Grav Dragon thing more problematic. But at the same time, they shrunk the area of effect for the ultimate, meaning it's going to be a lot more difficult to capture the entire enemy team in that Grav. So it kind of helped that Grav Dragon combo, but it also weakened it at the same time. I think this is a pretty good change. Yes, Zarya is going to end up getting her ultimate more often, but it's going to be only 2 or 3 enemy players stuck in the Grav instead of the 4 or 5 or the 6 and ending up with that team-wiping combo. So I think this is better because it's going to make the Zarya player have to make better decisions and play better in order to actually get more effectiveness out of that ultimate. So there you have it, guys, a ton of different changes. I think the biggest ones are going to be the Lucio and the Zarya changes. As for some of the others, like Ana change is not going to do anything. The Brigitte nerf isn't really going to change the dynamic of the character. She's still going to be just as powerful as before, and if people don't counter her, then they're still going to have problems. As far as the Mercy nerf, that is going to be huge. That is going to be really problematic for the character, but what do you guys think about all these changes? Let me know down below. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to see more, subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss anything. Also, come hang out in my Discord server and my Twitch live stream. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters. If you'd like to see what kind of cool VIP rewards you can get, check the links down below. And remember, always blame the controller because it's never your fault.